Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Khalil Ekulona, and this is Nashville. The Nashville Ballet's 2022-2023 season is about to come to an end, and with it, the final chapter for its longtime artistic director, Paul Vasterling. He's worked with our ballet for 30 years as a dancer, artistic director, and CEO. Over that time, the ballet has grown in size and reputation. This season will close this weekend with a production called New in Nashville, which he sees as a fitting send-off. Paul Vasterling will join us later this hour to reflect on his tenure, share his hopes for the future of the Nashville Ballet. But first, it's time for At Us. Yes. Each week, we take time to read the comments so you don't have to. I'm encouraging you to literally at us on Twitter at This Is Nashville and on Instagram at ThisIsNashville_WPLN. Joining me now with a look back at the past week is our digital lead, Anna Gallegos-Cannon. Hey, Anna.
Hey, Khalil. So, we didn't have At Us last week, so we actually have a backlog of listener comments. And newsflash, our listeners have very strong feelings about gun laws.
I can't say I'm surprised.
Yeah. So during last Wednesday's episode about guns in Tennessee, friend of the show and regular listener, Rachel Kestner tweeted, quote, "Both my parents are military vets who loudly support gun control. My mom showed me and my sister what a bullet can do to a brain using a water-filled coffee can and a shotgun. We were 6 and 4 when she did that. Neither of us has forgotten that."
That's pretty powerful.
Yeah, that's quite the visual.
Yeah.
Another listener, Jason Sparks, also tweeted at us saying, quote, "As a gun violence survivor fighting for common sense reforms, it is amazing seeing all the progress that is being made recently. But I am so proud that the Tennessee Three use their platform to advocate for reforms and not to save their own skins. They are heroes to me," end quote. He also added that he's against the idea of allowing teachers to carry firearms in schools. He went on to say, quote, "This is a terrible idea, and throwing guns at a problem doesn't fix anything. Can you imagine a kindergartner teacher carrying a concealed handgun in class?" End quote.
Well, as a former substitute teacher who taught plenty of kindergarten classes, I cannot imagine that. Well, earlier this week, the Tennessee legislature paused a bill that would allow school employees, not just teachers, to conceal carry handguns on school grounds. WPLN's political reporter Blaze Gainey is following that closely in his legislative coverage, so we will keep you all posted.
And before that pause happened, we actually received a comment in favor of that bill. Johnny on Twitter wrote to us saying, quote, "I would prefer an advanced background and training certification, but a teacher willing and able to carry that burden should be allowed." He also added, quote, "The few teachers that are ready and willing and able/trained properly should be allowed to carry on campus."
We've got an episode upcoming in a couple weeks about arming teachers, and we'll be soliciting your input, so please stay tuned for that. Okay, so after the episode about guns, we received an interesting DM from David about language. David is a colleague of our guest, Dr. Jay Wellens. He wrote, quote, "It may be worth avoiding the term gun control, as it has become a term that is quite polarizing and stops the conversation cold. It was interesting when you used the term gun control advocate to describe the Moms Demand Action volunteer, because even Shannon Watts, the founder of Moms on Demand, is quite specific about avoiding the term gun control. Other options include firearm injury prevention or gun violence prevention," end quote.
Thank you for that, David, because as we know as people in the media, language is incredibly important. So like the gun debate, the pushback against the phrase gun control is far from new. In fact, it was something that NPR even reported about back in 2013. I'll let Ari Shapiro explain.
Ask gun control advocates to describe what this debate is about, and they'll say control really isn't the word they prefer.
We find that it's one of those terms that has some baggage.
Mark Glaze is director of Mayors Against Illegal Guns.
We talk about gun violence prevention because that's what it is.
Gun control suggests big government telling Americans what to do. Violence prevention, well, that's something everybody could support in theory.
I've seen polling in which the phrase gun violence prevention tests a good 17, 20 points higher than the term gun control.
Change words and you can change opinions.
Ari also reported that the National Rifle Association pointedly never uses the phrase violence prevention because it wants to keep the gun debate about the Second Amendment and gun rights.
There's so much nuance to these conversations. Last week wasn't our first episode about guns, and it definitely won't be our last. All right, so I was out Monday, and WPLN's Nina Cardona filled the host chairs for a discussion about how Christian communities are reacting to the Covenant's shooting. The last few weeks have not been easy, and Nina choked up at the start of the episode. A listener who goes by Chego on Twitter noticed and wrote us saying, quote, "I'm grateful for this show and the way they covered issues in a caring, sensitive way. Hugs to Nina Cardona for channeling the emotions of the whole city in that intro," end quote.
Nina always does an excellent job as a guest host. And the This Is Nashville team completely agrees with Chico's comment. So thank you so much for that. We also got an email about that episode. Our listener, Shoshana, took issue with our framing of it. She felt that we were implying that the Covenant school shooting only affected Christians. While we definitely did not mean to imply that, we take Shoshana's feedback to heart. Because it took place at a Christian school, and because many churches in that area have a direct connection to Covenant, we wanted to hold space for this community's concern. On top of that, local Christian communities are in the midst of a real political reckoning in the wake of that shooting, and we wanted to dedicate some airtime to that nuanced development.
Well, thank you again for that, Shoshana, and for talking with us more afterwards about your feedback. There was another episode we did last week related to the shooting. It was a panel of local teenagers sharing with us how this shooting is hitting them. What did listeners have to say about that, Anna?
So we actually got a lot of love for that episode. And here's a tweet from Margaret Stevens. She wrote, quote, "Thank you for keeping this conversation alive. Thank you for your show yesterday on the mess in the legislature. It gives me a little hope to know that there are folks grappling with these issues. It gives me motivation to figure out how I can be a part of the change."
Thank you for that, Margaret. All right, Anna, what else we got?
Well, before I head back to my computer, I want listeners to know that they can weigh in on next week's episode about community oversight boards for our police departments. The state is currently considering a bill that would eliminate Nashville's community oversight board. If you have strong feelings for or against the bill, please let us know at thisisnashville.org.
That is our digital lead, Anna Gallegos-Cannon. Thanks for this roundup, Anna, and we'll see you soon.
Of course, and our listeners know where to find me online.
Don't forget to add us on Twitter and Instagram. Let's keep the comments coming. Also, fill out our community survey and let us know what topics you want us to cover at thisisnashville.org. It's super easy and quick and helps us produce the shows with your needs and interests in mind. We have to take a short break. When we come back, we'll talk with outgoing artistic director of the Nashville Ballet, Paul Vasterling, whose long tenure will come to an end with this weekend's performance, New in Nashville. Are you a fan of the Nashville Ballet? Join the conversation by tweeting us at This Is Nashville. We'll be right back.
Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Khalil Ekulona, and this is Nashville. When the Nashville Ballet closes its 2022-2023 season this weekend, it will be the end of an era. Artistic director Paul Vasterling will move on from his post as the leader of the company. He's been with for more than 30 years. During his time, he transformed the reputation of the Nashville Ballet and built it into one of the foremost ballet companies in the Southeast. How did he do it? And what made him want to? Lucky for us, the longtime fixture in our city's art community is here to talk about his life and career. Paul Vasterling, thank you for being here and welcome to This Is Nashville.
Nice to be here. I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Honored to have you with us. So, your time as the leader of the Nashville Ballet ends very soon. How are you feeling right now?
Excited, very excited about the freedom and kind of less responsibility. But of course, there's lots of nostalgia and, you know, a little bit of bittersweet for the. I love working with the people, and particularly with the artists, the dancers, and the composers and the musicians. Those are, and even and the administrative staff. I love all the people stuff of it. I'll miss that a little bit, but I think I'm still going to get a little bit of it.
So the last performance this season is happening this weekend at TPAC. It's called New in Nashville.
Right.
Tell us about it.
Oh, it's a great show. It's 4 ballets, mixed repertory. It is with the Nashville Symphony. So we don't always get the opportunity to perform with the symphony and with the full orchestra. So that kind of drives what I choose. And it is 4 choreographers. One is Donald Byrd, world premiere, Matthew Neenan, another world premiere that we're doing, and then a choreographer named Kathy Marston, who's doing a story ballet based on Ethan Frome, the Edith Wharton piece. Kathy is a British woman. And then we're doing, because this is my last performance, we're doing a kind of one of my favorites, Appalachian Spring by Aaron Copland. And, you know, today is the day I get to go into the theater with the orchestra. It's the first day with the full orchestra. And I just love these days so much because the music is there, and we work to mostly record it in rehearsal, and we get to hear them the first time, and it's palpable, the excitement that happens in me and in the dancers.
What does that mean to you, that this is your last performance, but as you said, you rarely get a chance to work with the symphony, so it's like they're pulling out, the artistic community is pulling out all the stops to honor you on your way out.
Well, you know, we get to we're with them a few times a year. There are regular performances, but I mean, for me, it's not enough. And, you know, the time with them in the theater is very brief. You know, we do 2 rehearsals and boom, it's performance time. So, you know, having them there after we've rehearsed it for 6 weeks with just recorded music is just, it's magical. And, you know, not a lot of companies our size, many companies much larger than us, don't have orchestral or even live music. We have live music for pretty much all of our shows. That is kind of unheard of, and that's a Nashville thing. That's because we are just rich in these really amazing musicians and players and composers, and so we get to have all of that happening in our space and in our theaters, and it changes the way the dancers move. The live, it's, you know, it is of the moment, the utter moment. It's just like you and I talking here right now. It's this exchange that happens right in front of people.
Let's talk about your beginnings and how you found ballet, or how ballet found you. Where did your artistic journey begin?
Okay, that's a good question. I am from a very large family, grew up in Louisiana, 8 children, big Catholic family, and not necessarily artistic at all. My mom wanted to have one of her kids play the piano. She had my older sister do it, and who quickly said, no, I don't want to do this. And me, number 6, said, oh, I'll take the lessons. And so I started taking piano when I was 10, and I am a quiet person and really love music. When I was about 16, I was playing the piano for a community theater, and I'm tall and I'm male and musical, and this dance teacher who was there saw me and said, you should come and take classes. And I said, yeah, I'd like to do tap. And I didn't know what ballet was. Sincerely, I didn't know what it was. And she said, you can do tap, but I really want you to take ballet class. And I went in my jeans, and I looked probably quite ridiculous. And the girls were laughing at me because it was only girls. And, you know, in my first class, I was like, oh, this is really cool. It was really difficult, physically challenging, intellectually challenging. And of course, music was really involved. And I knew within, you know, a very short time, that's what I wanted to do. I certainly didn't tell my parents that I wanted to be a ballet dancer, because it was such this crazy left field thing that came out of kind of nowhere. I went to university in New Orleans at Loyola. I was going to be a music therapist. I was a music major, but there was a ballet teacher in the school who helped me, and you know, I became because I'm male and there's less men in ballet, particularly in those days. I got a job, and I was just kind of working around the country, and that's what brought me to Nashville. It was a gig, and I thought I'd live here a year or two, you know, and then it's 30 plus years later, here I am. So,
Okay.
lucky me.
Yes, lucky Nashville, actually. So you said something. You said it was one, I have to say, one of 8 kids. I thought I had a lot of siblings, but
That's a lot.
kudos on you on making it through in one piece. You said it was intellectually challenging. Talk to me a little bit more about that. Like, what were those challenges and how did they excite your mind when you first began?
I'd never connected music and physicality. In my mind, I was always the kid who danced with everybody in middle school. I was the only one who would dance. The girls liked me because I would dance with them. But I didn't really connect the sort of this coded thing to the music notes that I was studying otherwise. And when I thought, oh my gosh, this is a whole system, and I didn't really even think of it as a language than I do now. I just thought, wow. And it was in French. It was in a whole different language. I didn't know. I mean, the word I pronounced it was all wrong. And, and it was a sort of like crash course in it. And I just found it to be really challenging for me to do. I was always good in school. I was a pretty good student and things were fairly easy. This was not easy. And I wasn't naturally athletic either. I was, kind of a nerd. Really.
Okay.
Still am. And, had to figure it out. And people were embodying music in front of me when we're doing it. And it just really turned me on and still does. It's still an amazing experience to be in the room with dancers.
You started in ballet at an age later than most do. How much catching up did you have to do? Who helped you get up to speed?
A whole lot of catching up. I got hired early on. I was in smaller companies. I went to New York in the early 80s and kind of auditioned for 1 million different people and didn't get any jobs, and then came back and started getting regional jobs. But the woman who took me into her studio was named, she's no longer alive, Darlene Hike. She's the person who saw the talent in me, Miss Darlene, that's what we called her. Mm-hmm. And a woman named Gail Parmalee at Loyola University was the person who I don't know, she just she knew I was determined to do it. And I think that's what I have most of all is tenacity and determination and just stick-to-itiveness. Mm-hmm. I want to make this work. And I just when it works, it's just such an exciting thing to me. When the story is embodied in the music and you see people get moved, emotionally, I love that.
So you came to Nashville, which you thought was going to be for a short period of time. What did you think of Nashville when you first arrived?
To be honest, I didn't think that much of it, except that the company gave me health insurance.
Okay.
That is why I moved here. I was in Austin, Texas, and I had a gig there, and, they didn't give me insurance, and Nashville and my parents always taught me, you should have health insurance. I was paying for my own and, really responsible. And, they gave me health insurance, and that is why I came. And, I was more worried about the price of rent and, as artists are, as time has gone on, and as I stopped being a performer and I started being a creator, I started to learn the wealth of talent that is here. And this was in the 90s. TPAC, Tennessee Performing Arts Center, had their bicentennial, and they commissioned me to do a ballet with the artist Nancy Griffith, a singer-songwriter who has also just recently passed away. A beautiful, beautiful artist. And that was kind of my first pop experience. And it sort of opened up the world to me and made me realize that, so much music dance ballet can be, so much of it can be done. It can be done to so much and different kinds of music. And it really opened up the world to me to learn all that is here. And there are just so many composers here. People don't realize it, that just of every genre, and you get to talk to them, and they're usually really willing to collaborate. I have a feeling that might be because so many of them are songwriters and they have to collaborate in their business, but the boundaries are really open, and they're really excited about seeing their music re-embodied. One of my favorite things to do is when a composer or songwriter comes into the studio the first time and gets to see their music danced to. It's like them looking through a different kaleidoscope that they've never looked through before. And you can usually see it in their face, that this this thing that's been in part of their brain in a certain way has embodied in a different way. And I usually sit there and I don't watch the dancers. I watch the composers and watch their reaction to watching the dance. It's really fun.
If you're just tuning in, this is Nashville, and I'm your host, Khalil Ekulona. Our guest this hour is outgoing artistic director of the Nashville Ballet, Paul Vasterling. Tweet us your questions at thisisnashville.org. Okay, so one of the collaborations that you've done was with the Nashville alt-rock singer-songwriter Ben Folds. In 2014, the Nashville Ballet debuted the Ben Folds Project. You choreographed to Ben Folds' original piano concerto. Let's listen to a clip of that music, and I'd really love to hear how you go about creating something like this. That is very beautiful and powerful. I can see that you were moved listening to it now.
It's been a while, yeah.
So when you hear a piece of music like this, what are you picking up as a choreographer?
You know, it's really strange. You just sort of close your eyes and think about stories that might occur to you. And I mean, I could see the choreography there when we were playing it. It's the first cadenza, and it's the big duet. And I made for the first movement of Ben's concerto, which we co-commissioned with Nashville Symphony. It is sort of a story about a man and his different loves. And this first one, he had this femme fatale who he had this affair with, and then the second part was this whole like beach scene with these two women. I mean, I just let my imagination go and see different things in it. Sometimes it's actual visual images that almost like a film, and sometimes it's an emotional idea. The second movement of the concerto was more of an emotional idea that I made, and but that was a really fun piece to do, and that's Ben playing on there, and he created that whole thing back and forth with me, sending me little fragments, and it was so much fun to do it. And we actually got to do that at the Kennedy Center. We had our debut at the Kennedy Center with Ben Folds playing that, and it was one of my favorite moments in my whole time because, you know, we here and our audiences here love us, of course. We're the local team and everybody loves us, but the reaction at the Kennedy Center was amazing, and to see our artists and Ben out there and just they went nuts for this concerto, which was really fun.
That must have made you feel very happy. The Kennedy Center is one of the more notable places to perform.
In Washington D.C. It was a real moment. I won't forget it of almost validation and just seeing another set of people's eyes on our company and on our artistry. It was fun.
You mentioned before that you worked with the famed songwriter, the late Nancy Griffith. Mm-hmm. What was it like working with her?
Oh my gosh, she was this amazing person who had such a gigantic oeuvre of songs to choose from, and she just let me do whatever I wanted with them. And I'm going to just call her. And she, I think she thought I was just this nerdy guy. I mean, she'd never met me. And, I just showed up on her doorstep with, and they said, oh, this guy's going to, and then I started putting together the songs and kind of weaving together songs that she had never woven together before. And I'm finding these different facets of her music and then showing different sides of it. And, I think it changed the way she thought about the things. And we did lots of things together over time. I sure do miss her music and miss her voice. Yeah.
That was one of the first collaborations you did. How did that experience working with Nancy, how did that set the tone for future collaborations?
That's a great question. I mean, kind of it made it easier. People didn't think I was the nerd on the doorstep anymore. They started to take me more seriously. And, I would get to, I'd bring in and have ideas for them about different kinds of music. And then I'd like to let them start to write things that maybe they wouldn't write themselves, like Ben, with the concerto. Ben's a songwriter, really, and Ben Folds. And to make a long form piece of classical music that actually was based on his ideas of pop music was I think a pretty neat thing that sprung out of our work together and our thoughts. And that started to happen a lot more with other songwriters and composers as time has gone on. And you meet one and then you meet another. We worked with the Bluebird Cafe for lots of times. And of course that allows us to be with all of these different voices, and they're all so different and unique and excited. I mean, it's been fun.
You were bringing things to the Nashville Ballet that hadn't been there before. Tell me, when you stepped into the management role at the Nashville Ballet, what was your vision?
Okay. I stepped into it in 98, and the company had just had some real financial problems like nonprofits do, like, dance companies do. And so really at that point, I just wanted to make sure that we were going to stay afloat. That was first. And then I started to really think about, why are we here, and what does this organization of artists need to do here? So I always started thinking about how it connects back to the community. And that, people make fun of me because community is, the second word I say when I start to talk about the ballet company, because it, art does build community. And, the people kind of sometimes think that, being local is a bad idea, but actually I think it's the best idea. And all art becomes local, it becomes personal. And I thought, why shouldn't we be connecting directly back to our community and what it is? And, as time has gone on, and we're still working on it, trying to bring the voices of this community forward, the stories, the different kinds of stories and the different kinds of people. And gosh, the ballet that I just did called Anthology, it was all about Nashville. I found so many stories of things that happened here. This place is such an interesting place and such an important place that 30 years later, I never knew. It's a borderland between lots of different things, and just so many important events happened here, and so many stories are left untold. I had this anthology, I couldn't fit them all in. I kept getting more as I got up to it. And I was like, we need to do more of these stories because they're just so interesting and kind of bring us together into this interesting place that we call home.
Well, tell me how bringing those stories and collaborating with these wonderful, talented musicians here in Nashville, how did that help the company?
Oh, man. You're always getting new audiences when you do that. There are people, this is an unexpected thing for classical ballet to go into some of the areas that we went to musically, and even exploring the things and telling the stories. So you're always trying to, refresh your audiences and find new audiences and find people who are going to be excited about you. So that's a big one right there. And then, of course, artistically, you're opening doors, this idea of collaborating, this idea of breaking down boundaries between artists or people, and letting yourself be curious about each other's impulses, artistic impulses, is incredibly growing, and it helped the artist to grow and become better artists and become more interesting. And there's so much creativity in our company. That's one thing that's where I'm really proud of is, I mean, choreographers galore come out of Nashville Ballet. Again, other companies don't necessarily have this kind of generativity in terms of choreographers. Really proud of that. That's because of the collaboration that we have done over the years. And you have to learn to do that. It's not something you can just do. You have to learn when to just shut up, really, and be quiet and listen and feel, and then bring yourself forward to it. And, then this thing happens to you. And I love this. I talk about this all the time. For me, it's like my moment of being connected to heaven or God or whatever is when we go into the studio and there's nothing. I have an idea that might be a story, and I walk into a studio with a musician and dancers, and we're together and we start just fooling around. And then, an hour or two later, we walk out and there's like something there that I actually can look at. I mean, I video it now and I'm like, wow, I didn't do this. You didn't do this. We did this. It's pretty, and it's this beautiful symbol of community, of connection that happens all the time. It gives me chills just to think about those times. And I'm like, how did this happen? I mean, the ballet that we're doing this weekend, Appalachian Spring, happened just like that. I just went in with these specific dancers. They're real characters, these really distinct personalities that were in the company at the time of me creating it. And we just fooled around, and I call it speed dating. We go in and we do a 10, 15-minute session, and we just figure out, just do something. And then a lot of that gets kept, and, their personalities are embedded. The people who I created it originally on and with are embedded in the they're not dancing anymore. Most of them are not dancing. There's a couple of original casts in this weekend's performance, but but they will always be part of that. You'll always see them in it, which I think is really wonderful. But the act of collaboration and the lessons that you learn having to collaborate and let boundaries go is just such a great human lesson. I think everybody should do it.
Those collaborations and your vision helped transform the ballet. Under your leadership, the size of the company doubled, and it's moved from a small warehouse to a beautiful facility. Let's pick up on that after the break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Paul Vasterling, whose tenure at the Nashville Ballet is coming to an end. Join the conversation by tweeting us at This Is Nashville. We'll be right back. I'm Khalil Ekulona, and this is Nashville. We're talking this hour with Paul Vasterling, the artistic director and CEO of the Nashville Ballet. He's been with the company for more than 30 years. And as the 2022-2023 season closes, so will his time with the company. Under his leadership, the Nashville Ballet has grown from humble beginnings to one of the premier companies in the Southeast through collaborations with our city's music community and other efforts. His work has also opened up the world of ballet to new audiences. Paul Vasterling, thanks again for being with us today.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So, not only did the size and look of the company grow under your leadership, so did its reputation. In your view, what was the company doing differently than other regional ballet companies?
I think the key is that idea of directly connecting to the community. And, Nashville Ballet is not just a performing company, it's also a school. And we do just tons and tons of work in community engagement and community education. And that has always been just as important as the performing part of the company. So, elevating the school up to an important place in the mind, the reputation, and also elevating the community engagement and the work in our schools and the kinds of work that we're doing was an important part of what we're doing. And what I think is different, we wanted to have the strategy of intertwining community engagement, our school education, and our performances all into one, and kind of using the synergy between those areas to build the company up. And of course, then they start to work together. You start to get different connections to the community. You start to know people. Mm-hmm. You start to get networked, and people start to know you and start to give ideas to you or want you to come and do their program or want you to come and create something for them. And it all starts to work together. So it's this idea of just knowing where you are and being inspired by it.
Looking back at the past 30 years, what are the standout shows in your mind?
Oh, man. Okay. I mean, for me, my own work, my own choreography would be, I mentioned it earlier, the Ben Folds project at Kennedy Center, which was called Concerto, a ballet called Lucy Negro Redux, which just premiered on PBS. Great performances. That's a huge deal. They came and filmed it here in Nashville, and then it went. It's actually still available. It's called Black Lucy and the Bard, and it's about Shakespeare's love for the woman of the Dark Lady sonnets, who my friend Caroline Randall Williams, who actually I just realized is on the board here of WPLN. I just figured that out. Actually wrote this book of poetry that inspired the ballet. So that being on national PBS was a really big deal. It's still up there. Carmina Burana at the Nashville Symphony, and that was in 2009 when I premiered that. And when I did that one, it was such a big deal. You know, that work has chorus and a gigantic symphony and all these soloists and a giant ballet company. And I thought, gosh, if I don't do anything else after this, I'll be good. That was 2009. So I've done some other really pretty good things since then. And of course, my most recent one which is called Anthology, that I just premiered in February, and it was a real collaboration in that I didn't do all of the choreography. There were 5, I think, composers in it, 5 choreographers, all kinds of designers, and it was really this kind of honoring Nashville and the stories not told in Nashville. You know, these stories that I mentioned earlier about how many stories are not really talked about here. And we honored a lot of people in that. So that's another one I'm really proud of. You know, people ask me about my most proud. It's like saying, which is your favorite child? You know, it's a little bit of a cliche. And I would say it's usually my most recent one. In terms of the company, though, you know, we premiered Nashville's Nutcracker. Something I'm really proud of is that during the pandemic, we filmed Nashville's Nutcracker, when nobody could do anything. And we put it out on television, and so many, Channel 5, and so many people watched it and reacted to it and wrote to it. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people watched it, and we won Emmys for it. That felt really, really good and important, and like we did a good thing, you know, in making a difference in a period of time where it was really difficult for lots and lots of people.
Yeah, that must be something really, you know, just to be super proud of. It was a time where, like you said, it's difficult for folks. It's the holidays. People are feeling lonely. People are feeling isolated.
Yes.
Yet you were really able, I feel like you brought the true Christmas spirit to people.
And connection.
Okay, so let me ask you this. In some circles, ballet is kind of seen as haughty, in an aristocratic form of art that's not very accessible to folks. How do you respond to that?
That's a great question. That's one of my soapbox things. You know, it can be. Ballet comes with a lot of baggage because of where it was developed. It was developed in the courts of the kings of France in the 17th century. 17th to 18th century, and so it has these, and it was a primarily Caucasian white art form. But what I believe it is, and if we can get past the baggage that comes along with it, it is this ultra efficient and beautiful way of expressing human emotion. It's a language. And what we are doing at Nashville Ballet is bringing in all kinds of bodies, different kinds of voices that tell the stories. That's what's important, that ballet can voice all kinds of people's stories. And that has become sort of a fine point to my time at Nashville Ballet. I don't think I was that, I had that clear of a vision about it when I first started. But going back to these collaborations, I knew that we could step beyond these cliches about a woman, a skinny white woman in a tutu, and move way beyond that. And that's what I always wanted to do. And you know what? We've kind of done that, which is really cool.
What kind of barriers did you have to making ballet more appealing to those who aren't familiar with it? And particularly to these ideas, you talked about having different bodies, different types of people. I'm sure not only did you have to convince audiences of this new vision, but you had to convince the people you're working with as well. Right?
Absolutely. I mean, they just have these. Even now, I could go and talk to someone on the street about a ballet, and they'll think of a specific picture: a woman in a flat pancake tutu.
Natalie Portman from Black Swan or something.
Bingo, exactly. Mm-hmm. And what you have to do is show them, and you have to get them to come, and that's part of the deal in collaborating is you're tempting someone who may not come after all, and they're going to come and maybe see their favorite singer-songwriter or their favorite and they go like, wow, I never expected it to be like that. Or better, it changed my life. We had people when they saw Lucy, the ballet Lucy that Caroline wrote and Rhiannon Giddens wrote the music for, young women of color would come up afterwards and just talk to them and say, I actually saw myself, and I never actually expected to see myself in a ballet. And I mean, I was like over on the side going, yeah, that's right. This is it. This is what we want to be doing here. And, and it's a momentum thing. It takes time. This getting rid of the cliches and getting rid of the baggage and what people expect. And, it also comes from within. It's not just the outside. It's how we think of us. We ballet artists think of what the art form is supposed to be doing. It's based on tradition, and there are traditions in it that we are working to kind of get rid of, to be honest, mm-hmm. and change and defy expectations.
What made you want to turn Lucy, Negro Redux, into a ballet?
Oh my gosh! A board member, gave me the book, and in the passing, and in the hallway of the ballet, and it's just a little teeny book. And lots of people give me books and music, which I think is a great privilege of mine, being mm-hmm. in the position I'm in. I get and it's wonderful. And I thought, okay, thanks. And then I picked it up off a pile a weekend and read through it, and I got in touch with Caroline and said, I think there's something here. I'm not sure. It could be a film, it could be a ballet, or maybe it's an opera. Let's meet. She and I didn't know each other, and I said, I'm not even sure I'm the right guy to do this. And we started to talk, and we just connected about the work. And to me, it was clearly a dance that had, there was conflict in it. There was passion. There's romance, all the things you want in a really good story. Mm. And, of course, Shakespeare, which we talked about inspiration. I've always been a big Shakespeare. I've done lots and lots of Shakespeare ballets. Romeo and Juliet is going to be on the season next year, and Macbeth and Midsummer Night's Dream. And I love the sonnets. And of course, Caroline's inspiration for Lucy were many of the sonnets. So it was kind of a no-brainer. It took on a really wonderful life of its own in terms of the creative process, and how words became just regular poems, and poetry became music to us, and it really took on its own thing.
You also worked with Kayla Rouser, who advocates for more diversity in dancers we see on stage, from ethnicity to body type, that you were obviously able to accomplish. Tell me, how did she influence you?
Oh man, there's a cliche about how do you separate the dancer from the dance. That is a true thing. It's not a cliche for me anyway. The dancers who create the roles with me are embedded in it forever. So Lucy is a creation of Kayla, as it is, much of it is a creation of mine and Caroline's and Rhiannon's. And I think it was if you talk to Kayla, but I think it was a tricky subject to talk to her, to do for her, a journey that we went on together, and I learned a whole lot in the journey. But Kayla, she is the original and I think most important. I don't know if you know her or not, but she's just an amazing person and so articulate, and such a gorgeous Lucy, because she's just this little teeny thing. Very delicate and actually kind of small, of stature. But she took this role and just blew it out of the water. And what we were exploring in this ballet was how do you find power? How do you find this woman's power in this story? And Kayla just, particularly with her point work and the work on her toes and how that became an expression of power. And that was her idea. One day I said, well, how do you feel most powerful? And Kayla, as a ballet dancer, said to me, well, I feel the most powerful when I'm on point, Paul, because I was trying to get her to do it not on point. And I was like, it was the camera panned back for me. I was like, oh, yeah. And then kaboom, that's when it all kind of came together in that role. That's the kind of conversations that we have, though, with artists, is these sort of frank, boundary lowering conversations where we can kind of get real with each other and understand each other a little bit better.
I want to ask you about that. Two things real quick. How much does it hurt to be on point? It looks painful.
It hurts a lot. Yeah. Wow. I mean, they don't let them fool you. It's a they have to imagine being on your point shoes for 6 or 7 or 8 hours a day. And that's how they work. And so it is, you're up. Try it sometime. You're perched up on your toes, and it does. You get bruises, you get blisters. There's a little bit of support in the school, but in the shoe, but it does really take its toll on them. So yeah, they get used to it, in a way. But I mean, it's part of the hazard of being a dancer.
As with athletes, they'll have injuries and scars from doing this phenomenal work.
Yep.
When you're looking at dancers, though, what are you attempting to see from them as they work through these movements?
That's another really great question. Is me personally, I'm looking for an individual who has something to say. Who has. It's a hard job. Being a dancer, like being a professional athlete, you have to be at it all the time. Even when you're not rehearsing or performing, you're taking care of your body, you're eating right, you're thinking about what you're going to eat next, you're trying to get sleep, all the things. But most important is that they have the desire to express themselves this way through their body, through their emotions, through music. And then, of course, there's the sort of technical requirements that, ballet takes, certain kinds of bodies, and there's a certain level of flexibility that they have to have. Most important, though, because all of those things that I just talked about, the physical traits, can be transcended by, in my opinion, by someone who really has something that they want to say. And, if you look at great artists, great ballet artists over time, many of them had what we would call the ballet world physical limitations that they had to work around. And, I won't give you an example because they're sort of obscure, but they had to work around their feet weren't right or whatever. But they're still, in the books as this amazing artist. And, did you ever get to see dancer X, Plisitskaya, a Russian ballerina? Did you ever get to see her do Swan Lake? And I mean, they changed people's lives by what they did on stage. Yeah. They really did. They changed the moment in time for them.
That language you were mentioning earlier, sometimes for the dancers, there's a perception of being obsessed with absolute perfection. And it creates this incredible, in many ways, unrealistic pressure.
Yes.
How do you get your dancers to work through that?
Yeah. Well, that's part of the remember the baggage I was talking about that ballet comes with? That's one of them, is this idea of perfection, because we work every day on, perfecting a kind of our body. It's like doing scales. The ballet class is like practicing scales, and you're trying to perfect that quote unquote scale. It's a set of physical movements every day. But the point, and the way I try to get around that is like, you throw all that away. Hopefully it becomes it's the zeros and the ones underneath the software running on top, and that just comes out as being beautiful and interesting, and someone is moved. I don't want them I don't want someone to see us and go, oh, well, look how high her leg is. What I want them to see is some sort of human emotion, like, oh my gosh, I never thought of that situation that way before. And then later they might think, and her leg was really high too. My God, how did she get her leg up that high? But that's not the first thing I want them to think of, because that's not the important thing here. The important thing is feeling something, that human connection.
Ending a 30-year career is a very big deal, and let alone in one place. We got just under a minute left. Tell us what's next for you.
Oh, man, I am going to not work so much.
Okay.
I have a husband of 25 years, same amount of time that I've been the director. His name is Jason Merrill-Facio, and he has been my rock for my entire career in this place. And I'm going to spend more time with him and travel. And, I'm artistic director emeritus at Nashville Ballet, and they'll be doing some of my ballets. I want to figure out how to write and the craft of writing. And, I'm working on some projects with some singer-songwriters here. And, who knows what's going to happen with the art part. I'm still an artist.
Yeah, that's right.
Not leaving that.
And a little bit of vacation time in between.
Absolutely.
Paul Vasterling, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
The Nashville Ballet is closing this season with New in Nashville this weekend at TPAC. It's the last show under longtime artistic director Paul Vasterling, who is retiring after more than 30 years. Again, thank you, my friend, and best of luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in this hour. Tomorrow, Betty Page, or better known as the Queen of Pinups, was a pop culture icon and a native Nashvilleian. We'll reflect on her life and the legacy she left behind both nationally and right here in Music City. This is Nashville is a production of WPLN News and Nashville Public Radio. Listen back at thisisnashville.org or wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode was produced by Magnolia McKay. Our senior producer is Steve Harouche. Our digital lead is Anna Gallegos-Cannon. Michaela Elias is our technical director. Our executive producer is Andrea Tudhope. And the masterminds behind our theme music are Laurent and Namir Blade. Special thanks to Dylan Davis. The conversation doesn't end here. Tweet us at This Is Nashville. Find us on Instagram and let us know what you want from our show by filling out our quick survey online. This is Nashville. I'm Khalil Ekulona. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody, and be good to each other.